Over the last few years, my relationship with clay has been up and down. I played my first ever pro event on it in Italy, where I nearly beat a top 500 player in my first pro match. And I've also had embarrassing losses without winning a single game. I got my first pro title, and I've also have the lowest win percentage on clay. And with that being said, one thing always stood out to me. As much as I dislike the surface, it's always helped me to see the flaws in my game. And like most tennis players, I want to improve my game and better myself. And that's why in last week's video, you saw me compete on clay in the UTR event in Germany, not to win or to get prize money, but to challenge myself on a surface where I know I would struggle, to see where I should focus my attention going forward to make the most improvements in my game. Now, I actually think for any of you guys really trying to work on your games, it's really important to find an environment that actually challenges you. Whether it's playing an older player, a higher level player, or just playing on a surface which you don't play on that regularly, or that you're not very good at. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how the rest of my event went, what areas I learned I need to focus on in my game, but also what I took from those lessons, so when you test your game, you'll also be able to know what to look for as well. And as a quick recap, as you saw in last week's video, I lost my first group match in 3 sets to the seed number 1 and world number 380. And as first matches go on clay, I was pretty happy with that one, and I had some good confidence going into the second match against the German player the next day. And this player had a slightly lower UTR than mine, but I wanted to capitalize on the momentum of the day before and see if I could get the win. And also after this match, I'm going to be telling you how I break down these matches and how I create a plan of how I can improve. So stay tuned for that.
I've just woken up. My whole body feels sore. First day on clay was a tough one. Gonna go again today. Oh, I love the grind.
I desperately need a haircut. Anyway, for today's match, main focus is going to be really working on the input-driven goals that I have. Definitely still going to be a learning curve. There are going to be times where, moving laterally, still not going to feel as comfortable. That's just part of getting used to the clay. But I want to try and use that to my advantage, not only to learn, but also to try and play in a way which allows me to bring out the best of my game. So big forehand, big serve. So yeah, with that being said, let's get it. Right, so jumping into this second match, once again on the centre court, was always nice to have that consistency between the courts. Started off pretty strong here, on my serve, and it's obviously slightly different in terms of expectations going into a match like this against an opponent which isn't, much better than you. So you've always got to kind of, see it from a different lens, and the lens I saw this one through was, going to come in with a couple of things I'm trying to work on, going to try and really be good at defense, play with a bit more height and shape or angles, and try and get on my forehand as much as possible to do damage. You can see there getting that forehand nice and deep, opening it up to the backhand. He puts in a pretty good defensive shot. I mix it up. He plays that ball just wide, and I get a break point pretty early on here, in this match, and really wanted to try and capitalize on that pretty early on. So I get a second break point here in this service game. Once again, just trying to make sure that I can get out of defense onto offense a little bit quicker. And I get the early break. Obviously, that gave me a lot of confidence going into the the rest of this set. Starting off with the 3-0 definitely helps. I felt my backhand was working really well. Actually, the last couple of days, which has been really nice. And I've been finding a way to kind of come out of defense and win points. That's not my best moment there. A couple of bits and pieces that I'm still, on the clay, looking to kind of work on over time. And there are always going to be games where, you throw in a couple of loose points. And that's obviously something that I'm personally working on, is trying to make sure that I can be a bit more consistent game to game. I think tennis is a sport where you've just got to be so focused so much of the time. And if you can have those games where you make a couple of errors, you can really let your opponent back into the match. That's obviously something I'm conscious of here in my service game. Again, going break point down, mixture between opponent playing a couple of good points and putting me under pressure. But I kind of knew here, look, in this point, I'm going to try and stick to what I do well, which is get on my forehand side, and I do turn it around and win this game and go 4-1 up. So knowing how to trust your weapons and how to trust, let's say, my backhand, which out of my 2 shots is probably the shot that I don't play as well. How to, know what to do on those moments. Crazy point right there. Sometimes tennis is just about the hustle as well. I think first time I tried the drop shot in this match, played it pretty well, trying to learn from the best, Carlos Alcaraz, but again managed to hold on to this game here at 5 to go 5-2 up. And I really wanted to try and sneak a break here, because it's always nice to start the second set with a service game. So, I thought I was playing pretty good. I thought I was using the angles on the court. I felt actually very good this day. and overall really trying to kind of build that positive momentum on the clay. Even though I don't want to say I was really enjoying myself, because I always find clay is quite like a learning curve. But overall I was actually enjoying kind of that new feeling, that new like mindset. When you're playing at this level, you're also constantly thinking about what the opponent's doing, what I'm doing, how I'm moving. And those things all play a role in obviously just the tactics of the match. I managed to do a pretty good job here, as you can see, of winning the first set, which I was pretty happy with. And tactically, just trying to do the basics was something I was trying to focus on, because as soon as you start overcomplicating it, you start not actually focusing on the match rather than where you're supposed to play and what you're supposed to do. So again, beginning of this set, look to just hit some big first serves into big spaces. Keep it pretty simple. I think the principle of knowing, where your shots are going to do the most damage is important. So I've worked a lot over the last couple of weeks on figuring out on my serve what patterns I do well, where I can win the most points and where I get the most free points. And if you know your data, you know those stats, it's going to be so much easier to actually figure out what you need to do in matches in big moments, figure out what things you need to work on where the stats maybe aren't in your favor as much. And as you can see here, pretty good start to the second set as well, getting a break point or two in his service game. Him moving me around pretty well. I felt like in the second set here, he began to up his aggression a little bit. So I was just quite conscious of that. I didn't want to, give him too many short balls, so I wanted to keep him under pressure. Great drop shot from him there. And, this game, again, was a good opportunity to try and, get ahead. You see me using that angle backhand there, which is not something not something I was doing as much on the hard courts, but getting my opponent out there on the backhand. If they want to go cross, I can just trade back cross with them. I'm not really thinking I'm going to miss. And if they come to my forehand, I can open it up to the space. Great forehand from him there. Again, maybe didn't put him under enough pressure, and he actually gets a break point here in this in this game, but managed to again fend it off with a big forehand. I think you can begin to see clearly what I'm trying to do on these pressure points. I know that the data says that when I go big forehand and when I use my forehand, I win a lot of those points. So, I'm going to keep doing it. And this point was a little bit aspirational with the little hot dog. But overall, I felt pretty comfortable to try and go for it. And, in this game, the forehand just started absolutely ripping. Felt super confident, and, here was really beginning to enjoy myself, to be honest, in this match. Absolutely crunched that forehand down the line, and I get a match point here, second match point. I go big forehand down the line, take the win, a very positive second match. And so after that second win, I was 1 from 2 in the group so far. That was a pretty good start. Now, obviously this is editing Felix, but fundamentally I was pretty happy with the win, and I think I did a lot of the things that I set out before the match pretty well that I wanted to do. And I just want to quickly break down for some of you guys how important I think it is to actually go back and watch your matches or record your matches in the first place, and how you can break it down so that you can actually learn from the matches that you've played. So first of all, if you don't record your match, you're not going to be able to watch it, get any data from it, or actually learn from it. It's so easy to play a match, just forget about it, discard it, move it to the side, and then get on with the next one if you've lost. But those matches are actually where you're going to learn. And as painful as it is, I know you don't want to watch yourself losing, but actually figuring out why you've lost, the consistent patterns that you're seeing multiple times, are really important to actually build a pathway where you can then begin to improve. So when I watch one of my matches, I actually break it down into 4 categories: physical, mental, tactical, and any other observations. So let's take this match as an example. I'm going to break it down how I kind of look through it. So tactically, all of my intentions at the beginning of the match were be aggressive, find ways of attacking on my forehand, look to defend out of the backhand side, and overall find ways of pushing him off the court so that I can find spaces. And I think multiple times throughout the match, I really used my forehand on the pressure points. I've done a lot of research into my game to find out that when I actually have a pressure point, a break point, a game point, I'm way better off trying to find my forehand and being aggressive than taking a backhand line or a high risk shot from defense to offense. I know what works, so I'm going to try and do what what works to be able to win more points. And that's obviously part of my tactical game plan going into the match, which I was able to execute pretty well. So from that perspective, I was pretty happy with this match. On the mental side, I think I kept it up pretty well. There weren't many challenging moments where I had self-doubt or lack of self-belief, but I did find a way in the key moments to stick to a game plan, have a consistent goal, and I managed to do that pretty well. And I didn't really let him have too many chances to kind of come back into the match. So overall, I was pretty happy with that as well. On the physical side, obviously, I'm on clay. I'm not the best clay court player. I'm also not the best clay court mover. I class myself as a pretty good mover overall, but I'm still getting used to that sliding element. So being able to push off, kind of go back behind. That's something in my first match, which you saw 2 weeks ago, that fundamentally I was struggling with, is kind of that back behind element where players are going back into my backhand side. So just kind of understanding that and looking forward to the next match of, okay, I know this might be an issue, so I'm going to maybe take a step further on my backhand side, or I'm really going to try and work on it over the next couple of weeks to make sure that that lateral speed, especially if I'm staying on clay, is going to be worked on. And now finally, from an observations perspective, this is where I'll go and look at the match from a stats perspective. So I put it on screen, but overall from the match, I had 76% of first serve points won, 47% of second serve points won, and 4 of 8 break points converted. Now, I think that's a really good stat. You always want to aim for kind of 80% is a really good standard for first serve points won, and about 70% is a really good standard for first serve in general. We don't have that stat here, but that's something really good to look for, that you're serving well. And I think understanding that will allow you to kind of see in matches, okay, I served 40% today. Well, obviously I'm going to have more times where my opponents have break points or I've lost more service games. And so then you kind of know what areas of your game to work on. Now you can go through very many different levels in terms of how deep you want to go. So I've analyzed my forehand attacking percentages. I've analyzed my serving patterns. So for example, one of my favorite patterns is serve and volley, knock off on hard court. I know that if I can do that above 80% of the time, I have a much higher chance of winning those games, and I'm able to do that consistently when I'm playing well, and I feel confident in that pattern. I'm not going to try and go into too much detail, but fundamentally a lot of these patterns and ideas, it's really important to basically have the data to back up your game and how you want to improve, no matter what your level is. And that's how I'm kind of utilizing data, and I'm also using data from the pros, what the ATP Tour guys are doing, and their benchmarks in terms of what their serve percentages look like, what their win percentages look like, all of those different stats to be able to help my game improve as well. Match 2 was very positive. Now we're going to have a look at the rest of the week, how it went. I tried my best. It was extremely tough, but let's see how it goes. We had some very good points, so hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Post-meal, love to get in some carbs, some protein from the chicken. I'm gonna head to the gym later, because when you're playing these tournaments, and you're playing every day, you almost feel like pretty exhausted, but you gotta stick with doing the gym, doing the injury prevention, that type of stuff. Very important, obviously, refueling well. Luckily I didn't cramp today, so I'm gonna buy some pickle juice just in case. The spaghetti bolognese is banging, so that's a good thing. So we're currently in the supermarket looking for pickles, more specifically the pickle juice in the pickles. Absolutely no idea where they are, but it's supposed to help with the cramping. So if I do start cramping tomorrow, I'm gonna be prepared. See, preparation is key. Make sure you're prepared. That looks pretty grim, I can't lie. Dad does not approve. We decided to upgrade from this to this bad boy. They also have my favorite chocolate brown, which is very tempting, I can't lie. It's the one thing about tournaments, you got to stay locked in with the diet. But when you got all this good stuff behind you, it's very hard. And instead I'm going to be drinking pickle juice. But we're locked in, and I'm playing at 9 AM tomorrow. So I'm also going to grab a monster for tomorrow morning, get that energy. So let's jump into the remaining matches of this week. Now, I'm going to do it in best points compilation format, because there was a lot of footage to get through, and I really wanted to just showcase some of the best points that I managed to play and kind of do a voiceover for kind of how it went. So this match was actually at 9 AM the next day. The way that my rest day was structured was that I had a match every single day. So I played on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If I was to win every match. And basically, that was a little bit daunting. I knew that I was going to have a long week ahead of me, and with those first 2 days under my belt, I had some pretty good confidence. Going into this match, however, I don't know, you have that kind of sometimes where, you feel like you're in the flow, you're playing well, but, for whatever reason, you're not quite, feeling it on that specific day, and that day was today. And I knew initially, those are the days where you've really got to try to find a way of, how do you say, playing good tennis still, trying to find a way of winning the match, winning the points. Crazy points like this, were pretty pivotal. And I ended up losing the first set and going down here in the second set. I think it was just a little bit of, 1 point here and there that just caused the difference. I think my opponent played some pretty solid tennis, and just, always never really felt like I was able to kind of do what I wanted to do in the match, as opposed to, every time I was going for my forehand, I missed it by a little bit. I was running around and just not feeling like I was able to finish the point as quickly as I would have wanted. and that was kind of tricky. So I ended up losing that match, and again went through the next day to this match against, I think, the kind of number 2 player in our group. Now this was one I definitely wanted to try and win. I knew that, you know, I really wanted to kind of bounce back from that match the day before. And with that being said, I think I played really well at the beginning of this match, some really solid points. And as you'll see, it was definitely a battle. And playing someone with the one hand was also very fun because, you know, it provides that variation a little bit more. So I was definitely targeting it more than his forehand because he had a pretty strong forehand. But fundamentally, you know, had to try and find ways of adapting because you don't really play players with the one hand that often, to be honest. And this got pretty interesting. I had a chance to serve throughout 5-4, but didn't manage to convert. My opponent played a couple of good points. And so here, just fighting for a chance to get into the tiebreak, I end up losing the tiebreak 7-6. Now, not ideal. Wasn't great. And in the second set, it felt again like one of those sets where, you know, my opponent just couldn't do anything wrong. And I end up losing that match as well. So we're now 1 from 4. Not a great box, to be honest, from this week. But I did learn a lot, which was the main focus of this video and a main focus of this week, which is also why I'm breaking this down into, you know, the highlights of all these matches. I want to show you the best points and kind of explain to you my thought process and kind of what I took from it, rather than making you guys sit through 3 or 4 of my matches, you know, in one video, which I think would be a bit much. But this match was probably my favourite match of the week. This is the knockout match, so I'm playing the knockout. So if I win this, I go through and play for, I think it's 14th place, and if I lose, then I'm out. I'm done. Didn't make the cut. But with that said, this match was super fun. I was playing someone who, well, was very, very consistent. He made a lot of balls and made it tricky for me. And this one was an absolute battle. I ended up winning the first at 7-5. But I knew that, you know, I would have to keep up a really high level to be able to kind of find ways of getting through my opponent. And these matches are the ones that I really wanted to play on the clay. These are the physical battles where you've really got to try and find ways to win, play the big points well, you know, not have any dips, and all of those things, you know, are things I'm trying to work on in my game. And clearly, you know, as you can see, second set, kind of lose that one, and, you know, definitely wanted to have a good start here in the beginning of the third to try and come back and win this one. But this was about 2.5, 3 hours, this absolute battle, you know, and at this stage I was trying to just keep doing, you know, what I felt comfortable doing, coming forward to the net, serving forehand, great pass there. But my opponent did begin to kind of get the break and find a way to kind of push forwards a little bit, a mixture of a couple of good passes like that, and I end up losing the match. Right guys, so I definitely learned a lot this week. Took a few more L's than I would have liked, but definitely learned a lot in the process, and that's the main thing. Tennis isn't a short journey, so you have to find ways of understanding why you've lost and bettering yourself each week. It's not something that should get you down. I'm definitely frustrated by the losses. I'm annoyed. I don't enjoy losing, but I think fundamentally to see the bigger picture and eventually improve my level over the long term, you have to be able to learn from your losses, and part of learning is understanding, and in my opinion, recording and documenting the things that you've done wrong, the things that you can do better, and how you're going to be able to get there by creating a plan. And if that's something that excites you, then I've got a project which you'll be very interested in over the next couple of weeks, which you'll hear about. If you go click the link in the description to join my email list, you'll be the first to hear about it. So go and click that if you're interested. I'm very excited about it. And in next week's video, you're going to see me back on hard courts potentially, and I'm very excited about that. So make sure that you like and subscribe and stay tuned for that video next week. I'm super excited, and yeah, I'll see you guys in next week's video.